The strange events, the subject of this diary, happened in 194. In Orang the general public thought that these were events that happened out of place, somewhat normal. Indeed, at first glance Orang is an ordinary city and just a province of France on the coast of Algeria. Admittedly, Orang is an ugly city. It seemed quiet and it took time to see what distinguishes it from so many other trading cities everywhere. For example, how can one imagine a city without pigeons, trees, gardens, a city without the sound of birds flapping or rustling leaves, in short, a place that is completely worthless? Without penalty? One only notices the 4 changing seasons when looking up at the sky. Heralding spring, only the taste of the air or the flower baskets brought by the vendors from the suburbs as a spring that people sell at the market. In the summer, the sun burns the parched houses and coats the walls with a grey ash. Then, people could only live in the shade of closed doors. Autumn, on the other hand, is full of mud. The weather is just pleasant on. Winter. One convenient way to get to know a city is to see how people do business, how they love, and how they die. In our little city, is it the effect of the climate? All of that happens simultaneously, both passionately and silently. That is to say, there, people are melancholy and take care of their own habits. Our compatriots work a lot, but never. Also to get rich. Mainly they are interested in trading and first of all, in their own words, af. Of course, they also like ordinary pleasures, they love women, they like watching movies and swimming in the sea. But in a very logical way, they spend those pleasures on Saturday nights and Sundays, and the rest of the week, trying to make as much money as possible. In the afternoon, when they leave work, they gather at the coffee shop at certain hours, always walking on the same boulevard, or go out and sit on the balcony. The lusts of the young are intense and short-lived, and the vices of the elderly do not surpass those of the ball games, the parties of the fraternity societies, and the gambling clubs that make a lot of money. One would assume that this situation is not unique to our city, and after all, it is the same for all of our contemporaries. Surely today, nothing is more natural than seeing people. We work from morning to night, and then spend the rest of the time playing cards, going to coffee shops, and chatting. But there are cities and countries where people sometimes question this and that. All in all, that's not life-changing. But there are doubts anyway, and that's always an advantage. Orang, on the other hand, is clearly a city without doubt, that is, a completely modern city. So there is no need to specify here. How we love. Men and women either quickly devour each other in the act of making love or living together for a long time. Between these two extremes, there is usually nothing middle ground. There's nothing unique about that. In Orang as in other places, for lack of time and failure people are forced to love without knowing that they are in love. What's unique about our city is the pain people have when it comes to dying. Besides, say, hard is not very satisfactory, but rather discomfortable. Sickness is never fun but there are cities and countries where people support you during your illness, where you can say you entrust yourself to someone else. A sick person always needs tenderness, also wants a refuge, that is very natural. But in Orang, the harshness of the climate, the importance of the Afis to deal with, the tedium of the landscape, the fleetingness of the sunset and the nature of the pleasures all require one to healthy. Here, the sick feel very lonely. Let alone a dying person, trapped behind hundreds of burning walls, while at the same moment an entire population, in front of a telephone or in a coffee shop, talks about money. Bills, about bills of lading, about discounts. Surely readers understand the discomfort people feel in death, even modern death, as it comes in a dry land. Perhaps the above introductions make readers have a complete concept of our city. Besides, nothing should be exaggerated. What needs to be emphasized is the tasteless look of the city and of life here. But as long as one has the habit, one can live without difficulty. When our city encourages people to form habits, then everything is fine. Of course, from this perspective, life is not very passionate. But at least there is no confusion here. And our people, frank, friendly and vivacious, have always been properly admired by tourists. This city, lacking in beauty, lacking in vegetation, and without a soul, finally seemed to have become soothing and reassuring. But it must be added that it is assembled into a peerless landscape, in the midst of a barren plateau, surrounded by hills glittering with sunlight, in front of a pool of wonderful contours. It is only a pity that it is built with its back facing the bay, and so one cannot see the sea, but must always look for it. At this point, readers easily accept that nothing can make our compatriots look forward to random events that happen in the spring of that year. As we shall see in the following sections, it was the first sign of a series of serious events which we wish to report here. These events, this person considers very natural. Others, on the other hand, consider it unbelievable. Anyhow, a journalist cannot base such contradictions. His job is only to say, this happened, when he knows it has indeed happened, knows it has something to do with his life. Entire people, and because of that, there are thousands of witnesses who will judge in their hearts how truthful what he said. Furthermore, the narrator here, as the reader always knows in times of need, could not have taken advantage of any capacity in a work of this kind if it were not for a coincidence that he had gathered a number of testimonies, and had it not been for necessity, he would have been involved in all that he wished to report. It is that which allows him to do the work of historian. Of course, a historian, even an amateur, always has his material. First of all, the witness itself, followed by the witnessing of others, for, in his duty, he must collect the messages of every character in the diary, and finally the texts that have fallen into his hands. His intention is to exploit as he sees fit, and to use as he pleases. He still wants. But maybe it's time to put aside the comments and the barrage and get straight to the point. Reflecting on the early days requires a little more detail. On the morning of April 16, when he stepped out of his office, Dr. Ryu encountered a dead mouse in the middle of the stairs. He pushed the animal aside without noticing and went downstairs. But when he reached the street, he suddenly thought that the mouse was not in the right place and went back to tell the gatekeeper. At Meeson's reaction, he felt more clearly the strangeness of his discovery. To him, the presence of a dead rat was only an odd phenomenon, but to the old gatekeeper, it was an enraged evil. The old man insisted that there were no rats in this house. Rio assured him that there was one and perhaps a dead rat on the stairs to the second floor, but old Meeson's belief that there were no rats remained as nailed. There are no mice in the house, so this mouse must be brought in from outside. In short, this is a prank. That very evening, while standing in the corridor of the house, Berna Ryu was searching for the key to her room when suddenly, from the end of the dark corridor appeared a large rat, with wobbly legs and wet fur. The animal stopped as if to regain its balance, ran towards him, again stopped, then spun around with a low hiss, and finally fell to the ground, blood gushing out of its gaping snout. Rio looked at the animal and then went up the stairs to the house.